Coming up on Network Africa today, 9 South African suspects die during police shootout. More than 1.5 tons of cocaine seized by the Navy in Guinea. Plus, Ugandan minister to be charged over iron sheet scandal. Hello and welcome to Network Africa on Channels Television. I'm Anne Nwawodo. Thank you for joining us. Let's start in South Africa, where police say 9 suspected criminals behind a spate of attacks on security vans carrying cash have died during a shootout with officers. After visiting the scene of Sebokeng, south of Johannesburg, South Africa, the police minister, Becky Cele, said that several firearms had been recovered. Cash in transit is always known in South Africa, and they're extremely common there. On Wednesday, 2 bystanders were shot dead by a heavily armed gang which had just targeted a security van east of Johannesburg. Most of these attacks happened in Gauteng and the Eastern Cape provinces. Let's talk to our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, who joins us now online from Johannesburg. Hello, Betty. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Anne.
Give us an update on the situation. Are there new developments apart from what we know now?
Nothing much different, but we know that investigations are ongoing. I know that at the start of the operation, which happened about 6 a.m. local time, there were 12 suspects. 8 died on the scene, and then 4 were taken to the hospital under heavy police guard. Well, 1 died later, so you have 3 still being, they're in police custody, but they're in hospital. And I think 4 firearms, 6 rifles were taken from them, 6 explosives already assembled and probably ready to be detonated at some point, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. And then 4 vehicles were taken from the scene. And the police minister, Becky Cele, visited there as well to see. But the claim of the police is that all 12 suspects or all the 12 people who were shot on the scene, that they are all suspects. Probably, we don't know. Maybe later on we'll get to find out the identities of these people who were killed. And as you mentioned, just on Wednesday, when a cash in transit heist happened, 2 bystanders were shot dead, on the scene. And this is a scenario that we see every day, not the shooting of bystanders. People hang around to see the money blown up in the air, and then when the big bags are taken away by the robbers, they too want to take some of the money flying around to go, or just the shock of the operation, the brazen way that these people do these things. Some people hang around to see what's going on, which is quite dangerous.
How do these bandits come about such heavy arms?
Your guess is as good as mine, but we're talking high caliber firearms. So it's not just any ragtag robbery or robbers. So you know that there must be people, I don't want to say people in high places, but high caliber people too that may be involved. I recall one incident, a cash in transit heist that we covered some years back. The military precision with which these people marked the perimeter of the location of the heist, you know that these are not just anybody. Some were saying probably they're former military people. We don't know from which country, maybe not South Africa. And then we've had a lot of shootouts, so we don't know. And there was also an incident where a security company boss was found with a vehicle that was allegedly used in a cash and transit heist. And most of these heists, you still have insider information. So whichever way money is moving, you have people who give a tip, and then they plan all these things out. So there are people behind the people who do these things. That I cannot tell you. I don't know. But the police say they're going on with it. But I can confirm that between January and February, even the police commissioner for Gauteng in particular confirmed it, that there was a spike. And a grouping called the Cash and Transit Association confirmed that between January and February, you had like a 19% increase. And when you hear 19%, you think it's small. It's already a high number. We experience this almost on a daily basis. You hear in Gauteng, in the Eastern Cape, in KwaZulu-Natal, different provinces, even some rural areas where money is being taken probably to ATMs, and then they're ambushed on the way, and the vehicles are blown up. Sometimes the drivers die, sometimes they get to escape, their lives. But it's the reality of the country. We see almost on a daily basis, and it didn't start today.
So if this didn't start today, I mean, you've said 19% rise. Is the government saying anything about the safety of personnel, especially even bank officials who will be involved in this, and indeed residents, for those who hang around, for example?
Of course, on a daily basis, people are cautioned about their safety. The police authorities plead with the people, anyone who has information, and the intel that the police got for this particular incident that happened south of Johannesburg. It wasn't the cash and transit heist, but they foiled what would have happened. It was intelligence. There were people who gave the authorities, the police authorities, the information that in this house there's something going on. Probably just people in the area, or probably people who work with them. And they went in and stopped what would have happened. Remember, this is Easter weekend too. Sometimes you have a spike because ATMs are loaded or cash vans are loaded to go and load ATMs. So they catch them along the way. So the police is saying that they're doing what they're doing, but it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot, even for the police.
All right. Thank you very much, Betty Adibia, South Africa Bureau Chief. Thank you for your time on Network Africa, and please stay safe.
Thank you.
Still in South Africa, the government has revoked a national state of disaster declared in February to manage the crippling electricity crisis there. On February the 9th, President Cyril Ramaphosa invoked disaster regulations to fight the crisis that included daily rolling power cuts by state utility Eskom due to frequent breakdown at its aging local and coal-fired power stations, as well as years of corruption. The state of disaster gave the government additional powers to respond to the crisis, including permitting emergency procurement procedures with fewer bureaucratic delays and less oversight. The government will now work through its Energy Crisis Committee to reduce the effect of power cuts using existing legislation and contingency agreements, according to Cooperatives Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Thembi Nkadimeng. Meanwhile, stemming from the state electricity utility Eskom's implementation of the worst rolling blackouts on record as its aging coal plants fail, households and businesses in Africa's most advanced economy have been left in the dark for up to 10 hours in just one day. Telecommunications companies are also taking a major hit. Take a look.
It's the peak hour morning traffic in bustling Johannesburg, and Sifo Minalose, managing director of a major telecoms provider in South Africa, and his team are assessing their telecom tower before the next 2-hour-long power outage hits the area again. Inside the base station container, he points to backup batteries covered in concrete that the country's biggest mobile network operator has had to install to help power the site when the rolling blackouts hit. The batteries power the tower for up to 12 hours with solar panels just above the container, ensuring that they were never depleted. And on days of an extended power outage that runs for several days, Vodacom normally deploys a mobile diesel power generator on site.
On average, we're spending as a business well over 300 million rand on just on the incremental cost, not the normal cost, but the incremental cost on load shedding. And of course, that varies depending on where we are replacing batteries, for fuel, for repairs on sites. Theft is a huge issue for us, and vandalism, theft of the batteries, theft of solar panels, that sort of thing, cables, and so the cost of repair has increased significantly as well.
President Cyril Ramaphosa in February declared a national state of disaster, calling the crisis an existential threat to South Africa's social fabric. At stake are essential voice and data services in a country that is trying to develop its digital economy. Mr. Sito says they are having to divert capital expenditure meant for network rollout in underserved areas just to keep their networks up and running. Another major service provider with 12,900 towers in South Africa is investing 1.5 billion rand, that's about $85 million, in solar power, battery and generator installations, as well as an enhanced security features at its base stations. Carriers are deploying batteries that have a much longer power span instead of the usual 4 hours to cope with the longer hours of outages that often lead to poor or no signal. The challenges aren't simply financial. As the telecoms ramp up their efforts, criminal gangs are unfortunately doing the same, targeting newly installed generators, batteries, and stealing fuel. Revamping security at tower sites and additional measures to deter theft are making backup rollouts that much more expensive.
The cost of rolling out the renewable energy alternatives, the cost of the batteries that are being stolen and vandalized at the various centers that they're at the towers. If you think about the cost of diesel, that that fuel keeps going out each and every month. So the moment we are on stages 3, 4, 5, 6, then the costs are just going up and up and up.
Telcos are now lobbying to benefit from the same fuel rebates enjoyed by the agriculture and mining sectors, and are thereby also seeking to save on costs by jointly purchasing and operating backup power equipment. The government last month published draft regulations that would allow this for some energy users, temporarily excluding them from the competition legislation currently preventing the practice. But the final regulatory adjustments have yet to be approved.
Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're still watching Network Africa on Channels Television. The anti-Zimbabwe African National Union ZANU-PF protest, which was scheduled to take place in Pretoria, South Africa, did not hold. And this is coming in the wake of a shocking revelation by Al Jazeera Gold Mafia documentary that has exposed the alleged corruption and the greed of the country's elites. Our correspondent, Innocent Samosa, has more from Pretoria, South Africa.
Well, the Al Jazeera Gold Mafia documentary, in many respects, it has sent shockwaves to many people. But Zimbabweans living in South Africa are telling me that they're not shocked. In fact, this is what they've known for quite some time. In fact, they're saying that this is an opportunity for the international audience to see what is happening in Zimbabwe. We understand now that the newly formed political party in Zimbabwe, E-Movement, was supposed to protest here under the banner ZANU-PF must go, but it would seem like there was no show. I, in fact, asked the security guard, the police, there was no show from this particular group of protesters. But we know now that this documentary goes further to implicate big banks in South Africa, and we understand that SASFIN has issued a statement saying that they're working around the clock to in fact bring to book those former employees who are working in the foreign exchange unit. Meanwhile, Standard Bank also has issued a statement saying that they have zero tolerance to corruption. They say that they will indeed work with the authorities to actually bring those perpetrators to book. And of course, we understand that later this week, some group of people will be protesting outside Prophet Hubert Angel's church here in South Africa. They say that they want him to also step down. You would recall that in that particular documentary, it is alleged that he is actually siphoning gold out using his diplomat status. So as it stands, we understand that there's a plan to actually go there, but we don't have an official statement from the South African, or should I say, we don't have a statement from the Treasury here in South Africa with regards to those banks, those big banks that are actually implicated in this particular gold mafia.
The Guinean Navy has seized more than 1.5 tons of cocaine from a ship flying the Sierra Leonean flag. According to a statement from the Army, 62 bags of 25 kilograms of cocaine each and another 22 kilograms were found in the hold of a vessel boarded by the Army during one of its permanent surveillance missions of the Guinean Maritime Territory. The ship's crew was composed of 4 Sierra Leoneans, 3 Ghanaians and 3 Guineans, according to the Army's Information and Public Relations Department. The Minister of National Defense officially handed over 1,572 kilograms of cocaine and the 10 crew members of that ship to the prosecutor of the Court of First Instance in Conakry. The statement added that noting investigations have started. The UNODC says that between 2019 to 2022, at least 57 tons of cocaine were seized in or en route to West Africa, mainly in Cape Verde, Senegal, and Benin Republic. And away from that now, Uganda's Director of Public Prosecutions has approved corruption charges against Karamoja Affairs Minister Mary Goretti Kitutu over her role in an iron sheet scandal in the northeastern region. The Speaker of Parliament and some cabinet ministers have also been mentioned in that scandal that involved the alleged theft of 5,500 iron sheets meant for disaster victims in the Karamoja region. Ms. Kitutu, who is currently under police detention, will be charged today. She is expected to spend the Easter holiday in Luzira prison, where she will be remanded after the charge. President Yoweri Museveni has called for the prosecution of all those found guilty. And joining us now on Network Africa is VOA correspondent Halima Athumani. Halima joins us online from Kampala in Uganda to bring us more on this. Thank you very much for joining us, Halima.
Thank you for having me once again.
Let's begin by knowing what exactly or how widespread the scandal actually is.
This scandal is so widespread. This scandal is so embarrassing. And why I use the words embarrassing, because it literally involves the top leadership of this country. I think the only big person name that is missing on this list is the president. But you have the prime minister, you have the vice president, you have the speaker of parliament, you have the first deputy prime minister, the second deputy prime minister, the finance minister, the minister for lands, the minister for Karamoja, who has been charged today, the government chief whip, minister for ethics and integrity, the people who are supposed to uphold the moral values of this country, who are supposed to show leadership, lead by example, are the ones who have been implicated in this. Of course, we have people, for example, like the vice president, who has come up to say that when she received information that she was being given iron sheets, she was all the way in Dubai, in the Emirates. So she directed that if the iron sheets are being given to her, then they should go directly to the members of her community, vulnerable members of her community, and that's exactly what she did with the iron that she was given. But it is really widespread. It also involves relatives of ministers, especially, for example, Gitutu's family members. And you ask yourself, how would a relative of a minister benefit from a project that was going to help the vulnerable?
Enlighten us on what these iron sheets were meant for. I mean, we also know that it was for disaster victims. Was it for roofing, for building for them? What exactly were the iron sheets for?
So according to the DPP, between June 2022 and January 2023, this is when there was the cause of loss of public property, 9,000 pre-painted iron gauge iron sheets. And they were supposed to be given to members of Karamoja. Now, Karamoja is the least developed part of Uganda. it has many of them love to live in manyatas. If you go to Karamoja, they kind of build their homes with mud and wattle, so they're still, and grass. So they're still used to living that nomadic way of life, where they know if we set up today, we'll move the next day. But a few of them are starting to settle and build homes that could actually last. So these iron sheets were supposed to be given to members, to the community in Karamoja to empower. It was supposed to be an empowerment program, and unfortunately the minister decided to give it to friends and colleagues. But yeah, that is what the iron sheets were meant for.
It's very, very embarrassing, actually. But when is this case likely to be in court, or have proceedings been concluded already?
The proceedings have not been concluded. Today, they had to read for her charges, and that's what she went for. So she was charged with 2 counts of causing loss of public property and conspiracy to defraud the government or the public. So the next time she'll appear before court, we're yet to get a date. Will be to enter a plea or a plea bargain, where she will plead either guilty or not guilty, and then that's when there'll be another time that is set for the trial to begin, depending on how far the investigations will be.
But what will happen to these disaster victims now that all of this has been taken away from them? Is the government doing anything right now? What is their state right now? Are there normal provisions or more provisions for them to sort this out while this hearing is happening?
There's really nothing. I think right now the only thing that we are hearing is about inquiries, about investigations, and that's what is going on. There are numerous agencies duplicating and doing the same work, unfortunately. So you see, you are investigating a corruption case, and then you have all these arms of government. You have the police, you have the State House anti-corruption unit, you have the Office of the Inspector General, and they are all, and then you also have the Presidential Parliamentary Affairs Committee investigating the same matter. No one is thinking about Karamoja right now. I think if these people who were supposed to receive these iron sheets are to get any help, they'll have to wait for another financial year. Probably that is when they will, reallocate. But one thing you need to know is that some of the ministers, for example, the State Minister for Karamoja Affairs, unfortunately, a former journalist called Agnes Nandutu, when she got her share of iron sheets, I think she had not done anything with it, and then she brought them back. And then I think the finance minister, for example, unfortunately for his case, he's already used them. He set up a house for his goats. Okay, that's how unfortunate it is. And so unless there's anyone who actually not use the iron sheets to bring them back, but I know that the president has stated and said that everyone who is culpable will have to pay and be prosecuted for their role in this big scandal.
Yeah, well, that's a very good example for those who want to be corrupt and misuse government funds or things meant for other people. But thank you very much, VOA correspondent Halima Athumani, for your time on Network Africa.
Thank you.
Let's head to Sudan now, where leaders have again postponed the signing of a final agreement to re-establish a civilian government as differences within military factions intensify. Talks have continued overnight, with negotiations centered on a draft deal that was to be signed today. The negotiations stalled during an argument and disagreement over the unification of the National Army and the dreaded paramilitary rapid support finances and forces led by the deputy head of Sudan's ruling council, Mohamed Hamdan Daglo. The spokesman for the talks, however, said they were still determined to reach a consensus with the military. The factions hope that the final peace deal would unlock millions of dollars frozen by the European Union and the United States and help the country's struggling economy. And this is where we draw the cuttings on today's edition of Network Africa. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu.